you don't actually have to have a large budget to build a home library over time. Now, I don't know about you, but when my kids are not home, I love to clean and organize things. Now, I will say I am not a very organized person in all areas of my life, except for books. We have a home library that is kind of like my dream. I've always wanted a whole room that was just a library, and we don't have a whole room, but we have this whole corner of our family room, school room that is our library corner. And it really is a dream for me. And sometimes when my kids are gone, I reorganize and reshelve books that have, gotten misplaced or just not put away in the right places or just not put away at all, because that happens with 5 kids who love to read and who homeschool and are constantly pulling books off the shelves, and I'm constantly pulling books off the shelves. So I'm spending some time reorganizing and reshelving books, and while I'm doing that, I thought that I would share with you how I have built our home library on a budget. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. If you're new, hi, I'm Jess from the blog SiloNCH.com, and here we talk about cultivating your home, homeschool, homestead, handmade things. We love to talk all things home here, and today we are talking about our home library. Now, we are a homeschooling family. I used to be a school teacher, an elementary teacher, and so I love books. I love books for myself. I love books for my kids, and I have made this one of our top priorities in our homeschool. Now, in case you haven't seen it, I will link it above, but I have a tour of our homeschool room because our homeschool room is a little bit different. It's not like a traditional homeschool room. Now, when we moved into this house, we did have a traditional homeschool room, and I go into it a little bit in that video, but it didn't work for us because we just found that our learning doesn't happen just during a school time. It happens all the time, and we like to learn as a family, and we like to be together as a family, because for us, it's not about school, it's about home. Home over school has been my motto for a long time. Choosing home over school. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't do any academics. Clearly, we like to learn, right? Like looking at all of these books, but we like to do it in a different way than the traditional school system would tell us that learning has to happen. We like to do it together as a family. We like to do it over books instead of curriculum. We like our learning to be driven naturally. We like it to be driven by our kids' interests and needs and not by a timeline specified by somebody else. So this home library is a key part of making that happen, because when my kids say, Mom, I heard about John F. Kennedy. Tell me about him. I can actually say, oh, here, look, got all these books in my way, but I've got a book right here on John F. Kennedy. Let's learn about him. Let's find out who he was and what he did and what happened to him. But I know that a lot of people look at a home library like this and they're like, this is insane, Jess. How would you have that much money that you could spend on books? Well, let me tell you that I do not spend a lot of money on books. Okay, I do spend maybe a lot of money on books, but I have built this library over many years and on a budget. Now, you don't have to have a home library like this to homeschool your kids. You don't have to have a home library like this ever if it's not a priority for you, if it's not important. But for us, this has made our homeschool experience just so rich and organic and has driven the learning that our kids do. And it really has made learning so much fun, because like, who doesn't want to sit in a library corner and read about something that they had never known about before, that they could reach behind me, and I could pull out a book on frogs and toads and learn a bunch of things about frogs and toads, and then there are other books here about frogs and toads. Recently, my 6-year-old was asking about ladybugs, and so we came and found 3 books about ladybugs, and we opened it up and we read everything we could about ladybugs. And it was such a fun experience to do that together and to have that be naturally driven by the things he was interested in, the things he was seeing outside. And then we could just pick up a book and read about it. And we didn't have to go to the library. We didn't have to look it up on a screen. We had it in front of us in a book. But whether you want to build a library that is this size or not, you probably have a budget that you need to stick to when it comes to books, right? Most people get their books from the library because they don't have the space or they don't have the money to purchase a lot of books. And that is completely understandable, completely reasonable. But you don't actually have to have a large budget to build a home library over time. And I'm going to give you all of my tips of how I have built this library over time. That's the key part, over time, and on a budget. Now, the first thing to know is that most of the books that I buy are used. That is the key to building a home library. I do buy some books new, but I first and always look for them used. Now, the first place I look for used books is the thrift store. Now, if you don't have thrift stores, like really great thrift stores near where you are, I will give you some other options. But in my opinion, it's even worth traveling sometimes to find books at thrift stores. Now, you would be surprised at where you will find really great books at thrift stores. So the small town that I live in is about 5,000 people, I think, and there is a small thrift store in our town, and I always come out of there with really good books. So don't underestimate a small town thrift store, because most families have books and people tend to get rid of them when their kids outgrow them, or they're moving and they, realize they want to get rid of some books, or, they are downsizing, or, whatever, like a grandparent is getting rid of books from when their kids were little. There are so many reasons that people end up getting rid of books. So that means that you are going to be able to find them, and you are going to reap the reward of them not wanting these books in their house anymore. So don't rule out small town thrift stores, because I find great books at small town thrift stores. Now, I do think that Goodwill has usually a pretty wide selection of books, but their books are more expensive. So if you have other thrift stores, check those first, because for me, where we live, we have some St. Vincent de Paul stores and some Salvation Army stores, and those stores tend to be less expensive. So I look at those stores first before I look at Goodwill, because I can stretch my budget even more when I go to one of the other thrift stores instead of just the Goodwill. But I will say the Goodwill usually does have a good selection, and I often come home with books from Goodwill. Now, when you're going into a thrift store, go in with an idea of what you want. Are you looking for, picture books? Are you looking for chapter books? Have an idea of the kinds of things you're looking for. You obviously can't go into a thrift store and know, I'm going to look for this exact Frog and Toad book, right? Of course not, because what are the odds you're going to find it there? But you can be looking for nonfiction books, or be looking for books by a specific author. Maybe you have a series that your kids are working through, and you're looking for the next books in the series. Now, when you're looking at books in the thrift store, you are also going to be coming across a lot of junk books. Now, in the homeschool world, especially if you're familiar with Charlotte Mason, you're going to hear the word twaddle. Now, twaddle are books that are just kind of not good quality, and they don't have a great storyline. They really aren't well written, and maybe they are books about like cartoon characters, and they're just kind of silly books that don't have a lot of meaning or value to them. Now, here's the caveat that I'm going to say, is that sometimes books that seem like they're twaddle might be good for your kids. For example, I have a child who did not love to read until he read Star Wars books, and then suddenly he had this overwhelming desire to learn how to read, and he did. So don't discount those kind of books, but don't fill up your cart and fill up your library with a lot of books that aren't good quality. So look for books that have some kind of award on them, look for familiar authors, glance through the books before you buy them to be sure that they are a book that you want to keep on your shelf. Because there are a lot of books that my kids might be interested in that I have no interest in keeping on my shelf. I want these books to be high quality. I want them to be books that we're going to go back to over and over and over again. So I do look for a lot of nonfiction books at the thrift store. That is probably the number one thing that I'm looking for, or I look for specific authors of fiction novels or picture books. I'm looking for things that are good quality and not a lot of twaddle at all. All right, the next place that I look for books is Rummage Sales. You might call it a yard sale, a garage sale. Around here in Wisconsin, I think we tend to call them rummage sales. At least that's what I say. So when I'm out, and I'm especially in the summer, I find a lot of rummage sales, people are getting rid of books that their kids have outgrown or that they just don't have space for, especially teachers. If you look on like Facebook Marketplace, or you're looking in like a yard sale, rummage sale group, and people are listing a rummage sale that they're having at their house, look for teachers that are retiring, or maybe they're moving grade levels and they're getting rid of some of the books that they had. If you can find a teacher's rummage sale, let me tell you, that is gold, because you're going to come home with a bunch of books that are really awesome. And you can usually find books there that are even cheaper than the thrift store, because people just want to get them out of their house. They're clearing out, they want to make a little cash. People often sell books at a rummage sale for like 25 cents or 50 cents, and so you can get a really good deal. And if you find a bunch of books and you want to like clear them out of all their stock of books at their rummage sale, offer them something, like haggle with them a little bit. Tell them you're going to give them $5 for the entire stack or whatever, so that you walk away with a deal and they feel good about getting rid of things from their house and decluttering. Now, used bookstores don't seem to be quite as popular as they used to be. I remember when I was a kid, we went to the used bookstore all the time, and they don't seem to be around nearly as much. But if you have a half-price books near you, those are really good quality. Like, they are a little bit more expensive than a thrift store, of course, but you can usually find a good deal. And they are very well organized, much more organized than a Goodwill or any kind of thrift store. And you can usually ask them, like, they have an inventory, so they can tell you what they have on their shelves or what they don't if you're looking for something in particular. Now, you can also sell your books at half-price books. I honestly have never done that because clearly I don't like to get rid of my books. But you may be able to find the books that you're looking for online from half-price books. I honestly almost never shop at half-price books online, though. I only if I want to buy like a gift card for someone, but we have a half-price books that's not very far from us, so that's what I tend to do. I go to the half-price books that's close to us. Sometimes you can find really great deals. I always come out of there with something. I almost never go into half-price books and don't find something that I would like to come home with. I find that they are really good for nonfiction. I don't tend to find as many good deals on picture books, but they tend to have really great deals, I think, on nonfiction books. Now, there are a couple places that I like to buy books online. The first one is Thrift Books, thriftbooks.com. They're not sponsoring this video or anything. I just happen to love to shop there. I buy most of my used books. If I'm looking for a very specific book, I will look at Thrift Books and see what the price is. Sometimes the price is not any better than Amazon, so you do want to shop around if you're looking for used books online, but I think they have really good prices. You can also select like the condition of the book. So you can get a book that's just in acceptable condition and it'll be cheaper than a book that's in like new condition. And I have honestly not gotten a book from Thrift Books that's in acceptable condition that is bad. Like, I think it's always readable. So I think Thrift Books is a great place to shop. I do also buy used books on Amazon. If you didn't know, when you're looking for a book on Amazon, you can scroll down and look at see other buying options, and you can click on that and it will give you any used copies of the book. Now, you do really need to watch the shipping on those, because sometimes the book will say, $4.99, but the shipping is $4.99, and that costs just as much as it does for a new book. So you really have to pay attention to the shipping. You have to pay attention to the condition of the book. I find that a lot of thrift stores, like there are Goodwills that will sell their books also online. So it's just a great way to find a very specific book that you're looking for in a used version instead of brand new. Now, while most of the books that we get for our library are used, I buy them at thrift stores or rummage sales. I buy them at Thrift Books online or whatever, but some of them you just have to buy new, right? Like if a brand new book comes out and this is one that you want, what are you going to do? You got to buy it new. Or if there's like a very specific book that you're looking for and you just can't find it used anywhere, you're going to have to buy it new somewhere. So there are a few places that I buy. I do buy books on Amazon, especially because I will get like points, that I can use from our credit card. We can use them on Amazon. And so I will use my points to buy free, that they're kind of like free books. They're not really free, but you know what I mean. You can use your points for that. Or if you get a gift card from someone, you can put books on a wish list and you can ask grandparents to buy them for your kids or for you for Christmas, or maybe they want to give them like a back to school present in the fall. This is a great way to build your home library, is having grandparents or relatives, friends give books as presents. My kids love getting books for presents. So it's a great idea to make a wish list for your kids or just for your homeschool. And then if anybody wants to buy you a gift, they can look at your list and order you something and you didn't have to pay for it. Now, another one of my favorite places to shop is Usborne Books. Well, now it's called Paper Pie, but this is one of my favorite places for nonfiction books. We have gotten some of their fiction books, and I do like some of them. I'm trying to think if I have some on my shelf here. Okay, I found a couple on my shelf. This one I love, life size. Here's one about sharing. But we primarily buy their nonfiction books, and they have nonfiction books for all ages. So they've got these great Lift the Flap books, and you can tell that this is not just like a baby book. They do have board books, and they have these Lift the Flap books for younger ages, but this is a biology one, and it's really going into detail about all these different topics. I love it. Okay, so one thing that I really love about these books from formerly Usborne, now it's Paper Pie, is that you can get books about the same topic in different forms. So this is a human body book. This one is like a big pull-out book, and you can see like all the different bones and then the muscles on the other side. This one is a Lift the Flap book about the body. Let's see, where are the flaps? It's hard for me to do this upside down. And then you can see inside the ribs. Like, how cool is that? And we've got this one too, question and answers about the body. So different topics, but the same thing. Now, I've also found that they have like different levels. So you could find a book about the earth that is in a board book that's geared toward younger kids, and then a book that's like a little bit more advanced, and then one that's even more advanced and has a lot more information. So that's one reason that I really love getting the nonfiction books from Paper Pie, is because they just have such a wide variety of nonfiction, and they're interactive. I personally love them. I think that they are really high quality, and my kids learn so much. And I really love the Lift the Flap nonfiction books because they're interactive and the kids really get into it. So I really do recommend Paper Pie, formerly Usborne, for nonfiction books. And these are books that I'm willing to buy full price. Now, anytime I see them at a thrift store or for a rummage sale or even like half price books, I usually buy any of these Usborne nonfiction books that we don't have because they're cheaper. But I do highly recommend them. It's a great way to build your library, and it's a great way to give your kids information about topics that they might not be interested in on their own, or they might not check out those books from the library, or that maybe aren't covered in whatever curriculum you're using. So like if you're not studying the human body, but your kids have questions about something, you can just pull the book off the shelf. They can pull the book off the shelves themselves. That's what I find is the best about having a home library like this, is that your kids are going to find answers to questions that they have when it's not in their curriculum. It's not something that you're studying right now. It's just something they're curious about. And that's the best kind of learning, is when kids are curious and they get excited about it and they try to find the answers on their own. Now, the other tip I want to give you is if you are out and maybe you're at a rummage sale or you're at a thrift store, a used bookstore, and you come across a book and you're not sure if it's a good quality book, you're not sure about the storyline, do a quick search online. I'm going to link to a blog post that I have that gives you all sorts of like recommendations for websites that will help you determine if the book is like questionable material, like if you have certain values for your family that you don't want your kids reading about certain topics, or you want to know if it's like violent or if there's any language or anything in it, then you can look at these websites and they do a lot of reviews of books, or they just give you like a good understanding of what the books are about. I also would say read reviews on Amazon. You can be standing in a thrift store, do a quick search on Amazon and look at some of the 1-star reviews, because 1-star reviews will usually give you a good idea of what people like. If people really didn't like the book, like there was something super alarming in it, or there was like something really violent, or they just didn't expect this to be in like a kid's book, then people are going to talk about it in a 1-star review for sure. And one of my favorite websites that I will recommend to you is Good Book Mom. Now, she is a sweet homeschooling mom, and she's a friend of mine, and I love her content, and she gives some really great book swaps for books that maybe like are not very good quality, and your kids might like this, and that's totally fine. But the Dog Man books, I have to say, I'm not a fan. I just don't think they're very good, like high quality books at all. And I just don't love the storylines, and I just don't think they're very great books. But she had an alternative. She recommended the Dead Sea Squirrels, which is a fun play on Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's written in a similar format. It kind of appeals to that same reading level, and my kids loved it. So it was a great alternative for us because I didn't really want them to be reading the Dog Man books. And it's totally fine if you do, but that's just my personal opinion for my kids. Now, you don't have to have a large home library like this to homeschool. You don't have to have a large library like this to use books as your curriculum like we do in our house. But if you need help using books as curriculum, I'm going to link some resources below, including my Homeschool the Non-School Way course. That's where I teach you how to create your own unit studies and how to use interest-driven learning, like how to use your child's interests and their giftings and their strengths to drive their learning instead of always relying on curriculum to drive their learning and what they're learning about. If you need help pulling away from the curriculum or finding a good balance between interest-led learning and curriculum-driven learning, that is the place to go. I'm going to link it below, but you can go to silencesage.com/homeschool-without-school to find out more about my course, Homeschool the Non-School Way. I'm going to link all of this below, all the websites I talked about, and all of the places that I like to shop online for used or new books. But you can also go to siloandsage.com/reading to find all of my resources and my blog posts and my reading curriculum recommendations and all the things for learning how to read, using books as curriculum, and just tips for improving reading comprehension and all the things, because I love to talk about reading and I have a lot of blog posts about it that could probably help you out. So if this video was helpful for you, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in another video. And in the meantime, keep cultivating your home. Bye, friends.